Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Football Masterclass. Today I'm going to bring to you the tactics that involve pressing traps using the 3-4-3 formation that is on the rise in European football. Notoriously used in Atalanta, RB Leipzig and Frankfurt, those teams have gathered attention at a bigger stage and achieved significant success throughout the season. We can see from this the basic parts of this pressing scheme within the 3-4-3 against the 4-3-3 or the 4-5-1. The inside forwards press the centre backs while keeping the full backs within their cover shadows, while the striker keeps the pivot within their cover shadow, the same being seen in Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool pressing scheme. The striker can jump from the pivot to the goalkeeper if needed while still keeping the pivot six within the cover shadow. This pressing scheme therefore in theory can see 3 players press 6 opposition players within the first line, something which Papine Liners also mentions with regards to Liverpool's pressing. This pressing scheme limits the opposition's ability to build in wide area, therefore forces central build-ups, which can be then used to set a number of pressing traps, such as the first most obvious one here. The passing lane between the pressing forward and the central striker is deliberately left open to allow a pass to a central midfielder who is left unmarked but within pressing distance of a central midfielder. This central midfielder then presses it in tightly from behind, and then the fullback can now push in and leave the winger in the cover shadow. The winger can drop closer to the ball carrier while also occupying the lane to the fullback. The striker can also press closer to the ball carrier depending on the position of the 6, and the ball for central midfielder 8 can tuck in ball side of the opposition central midfielder. This leaves the pressing side in this shape below around the ball, with 5 players available to immediately surround a player with poor body orientation. To prevent the receiving player attempting a pass backwards on the cue of the pass being played, the striker should move to cut the passing lane back to the centre back, while also considering the position of the number 6, who can also be pressed by the nearby number 8 if the ball is played here. Adi Hütter's Frankfurt used this pressing trap in both high and deeper areas with a shape more of a 3-4-1-2 with a 10 marking the pivot and marking Thiago from behind. The only problem with the structure seen here now is if the opposition do manage the first time pass into the fullback, as the lack of height from the backline doesn't allow for pressure. Therefore, if the ball does reach the fullbacks, the defense should ready in this position here with one of the centre backs stepping higher and the rest of the defense covering the cross. From here, the pressing winger or wingback number 3 should press the ball carrier as tightly as is possible to prevent the possible switch of play and to prevent play down the line. Again, a short pass inside doesn't pose a threat, and instead plays into the same, now more compact area, which may become so compact that the opposition chose not to play into it. Therefore, if the passing pressure is applied from this winger and the outside is protected, then the pressing trap becomes even more compact and probably too noticeable to the opponent, and so they are likely to look to switch the play. It is then the responsibilities of the far side wingers to mark the opposition players, and the number 8 must also consider their positioning if the ball manages to go wide, which is an unlikely scenario. If the opposition look to play very wide and expansive and push the far-sided fullback onto creating a switching opportunity, the system can be adjusted again to prevent this and create another pressing trap. We can see in this situation in which the far side wide players push higher and wider in possession to stretch the pressing side. This makes the option of the inside forward pressing the centre back more difficult, as it would require the winger or wingback pushing onto the fullback in order to occupy the wide fullback in case of a long ball from the right centre back. A centre back must also push higher and across, and the whole backside must shift also, which we can see here has occurred. Although this pushes a greater number of players into high areas, it does run the risk of a diagonal being played with a 2v1 overload on a far-sided winger causing potential decisional problems. The far-sided inside forward must also tuck across to prevent a diagonal pass. With potentially large pressing distances involved in this, there is instead another option that can be used. The shape can change to what now has become an asymmetrical 4-4-2 due to the right wingback dropping into the defense. Now, instead of the inside forward pressing the center back, the striker can move from the pivot onto this player. Because the striker is jumping from the pivot, they are pressing from the direction in which the pressing distances for teammates are largest. And this therefore gives time for the winger and the central midfielders to get tighter in their position marking. The pressing distances involved compared to other examples are smaller and therefore more efficient. There is also more cover for a vertical pass down the line, with the central back also available to cover the number 2 if they lose the duel. A pressing trap could then be set around the number 8 or number 6, with the number 6 allowing for a better opportunity simply because it allows more time for the far inside forward to drop and allows for direct pressure from the front by the central midfielder. The player in the right fullback position must remain extremely tight and man-orientated to his player to prevent a pass being played, although in theory, again because of the shape of the opposition, there may be an opportunity for a wide pressing trap. We can see that the pressing trap around the number 6 here, after the lane was left open by the striker who catched the lane back to the centre back, meaning space was given to this number 6 to receive the ball. From here, the pressing side can form a compact shaped covering forward and lateral options and have enough players committed back so that if a penetrative pass is found, they can deal with it effectively. The following trap again is the variation on the 3-4-3 and has been used by Anthony Hubler from Frankfurt. And this trap seen here in home match against Bayern in the 18-19 season. Bayern are pressed back to Manuel Neuer and the left-sided striker presses inward slowly towards the goalkeeper. The central striker, who here acts more like an attacking midfielder, stays behind the pivot but still applies pressure, favoring shooting the right side of the pitch in his decision-making in order to set a trap and guide the pivot towards the opposition right centre-back. This pass to the centre-back triggers the central midfielder to jump to press. With a trap set so that to get to the target player, the opposition have to complete 2 passes. This allows more time for the midfielders to cover the pressing distance and can therefore get closer to the ball. The ball ends up in a wider area for the centre-back carrying the ball, and the Frankfurt midfielder simply cuts the passing lane and blocks the pass leading to a throw. The left winger is also able to protect the inside lane, and we can see still here that if the ball gets past the first press with a difficult pass, the structure is still compact, with the centre back stepping higher to cover and the central midfielder and striker stepping across to reduce the space in this area as well. This is extremely locally compact structure, but because of the intense pressure from the front on the ball carrier, a switch in play is not possible. One of the main advantages of having this back three is the coverage of the backline, so if one centre backs does step out, the defense can still be in a stable position by shuffling. In a similar example here, we can see again a pass into a fullback being allowed again through the pivot, but with this time the centre back playing the ball. The pivot must be given enough time to receive the pass by the striker, and the passing lane between the pivot and the fullback should be left comfortably open to allow a pass. Once the pass is received, the midfield can push across and look to trap the fullback in a wider area using the movement seen here. The winger will press the fullback, while the nearest central midfielder will move across to cut the passing lane into the opposition winger. The far central midfielder can then move across to mark, while the striker can then get both sides of the pivot and keep them in their cover shadow. The far winger can also move across slightly, as the threat of a switch in play is reduced due to the intense pressure on the ball carrier. This leaves the trap in this structure seen here with all available options cut off, and immediate pressure on the ball carrier being available. Traps set in wider area have the obvious benefit of the touchline cutting off an option for the ball carrier, whereas traps in central areas allow for more passing option for the ball carrier and therefore more passing lane to cut, but allowed for better quality turnovers in areas that give more passing options again. Another pressing trap available leaves the fullback free to receive the ball through a long pass direct into a wide area. The usual right winger drops deeper and concedes this space and attempts a long pass. Central options are marked tightly, and the far inside forward presses in tight to the opposite central back and can even double up on a ball-carrying central back. If players can stay on the far side of their opponents when the long ball is played, a pressing trap can be set up to cut the passing lanes to the inside. From here, the fullback is afforded some space to drive with the ball, at which point the central midfielder can jump across, also covering the passing lane inside to the striker. Because of the time allowed both by the long pass and the dribble forward from the fullback, the other central midfielder and the rest of the team can tuck over to create compactness in this area, as we can see here. Additionally, with the winger or wingback, the number 2, disguised behind the opposition winger, the same pressing trap could be set, with this player pressing the ball-carrying fullback and the centre back marking the winger should then drop short or run behind. However, the coverage of the inside passing lane to the striker is now much harder due to the press distances involved. One option a team has in order to aid their build-up is to stretch the lines of the pressing side. This can be done in a number of ways, but a common strategy is to stretch, particularly the first line of the press, is to use a back 3. This allows for more width and better coverage along the back line for the team in possession, and therefore gives both more players and more distance for the pressing side to cover. If the opposition moves into a 3-4-3 themselves against this pressing scheme, not much difference should be made to the pressing, simply due to the numbers committed to the first line still matching the numbers in the opposition first line to build up. All 3 central backs can still be pressed, with the striker now just pressing the centre back in front of them, and with the formation now matching, players can press in a positional manner. The movement and space occupation of the central midfielders is key to creating space, with the potential for the use of midfield box within a 3-4-3 formation. If central midfielders stay central, they open up space in the half spaces, but from a central area under pressure, this pass is unlikely to be an option without deeper movement. We can see that this deeper movement is to create a temporary 3-5-2, can create an overload and an opportunity to progress up the pitch away from the pressing trap. The near central midfielders stay centrally and feign to receive open, drawing their marker into a more central area and away from the half space, while one of the build-up sides inside forwards dropped into the half space quickly to lose their marker. A deeper movement from a centre back helps to occupy the inside forward, increasing the size of the half space and reducing the opportunity for pressure on the ball carrier in this direction. This dropping forward has to be fairly press resistant and technically competent on tight spaces, and the ball can then be played through the space which were vacated by the player, with a far side forward coming across into a central position, the wingback moving down the line while the pressing wingback likely presses inwards. If the opposite movement is made within the box, another possible solution can be completed depending on the intensity of the pressing in the first line. Here, the central midfielders move into the half spaces and feign to receive, which creates space in central areas for the inside forwards, who can then remain in higher areas. The closing of this passing lane can come mainly from the pressing striker in this scenario, and so intense pressure should be applied to this centre back, but this can create more spaces if the ball is laid back. The most complex role within this 3-4-3 formation pressing system is the role of a striker, who has to press while keeping the pivot in their cover shadow. As a result, when building up, we can look to exploit this complex role and adjust the shape to do this. Dropping into 4-2-3-1 can cause problems with these pressing traps. Dropping 2 players onto the same line as double pivot means that the striker cannot keep both deep central options within their cover shadow. and therefore means that one of these pivots must be passed on to a central midfielder. This is a tactic that Pep Guardiola and Carlo Ancelotti has used against Firmino's role in Liverpool's scheme. Now you may think that the first pressing traps discussed in this article can then be used in this scenario, but with the different dynamics involved in a 4-2-3-1, this trap can become extremely easy to overcome. With the other pivot on the same line, a lateral pass is available with some limited pressure available. The 10 can also receive in the space between the two midfielders, and the space between the wingback and the central midfielder can also be exploited potentially. Each pressing player also has a number of different passing lanes to cover, and therefore decisional problems may occur when considering the direction of a run, and of course both lanes can be covered. It could also then be argued that the initial pressing midfielder could jump to man mark one pivot, while the other pivot is kept within the cover shadow of the striker. However, due to the depth involved within this 4-2-3-1, unless the pressing team has extreme confidence in its defender's 1v1 ability, they cannot afford for this player to push too high, or vertical compactness is lost, and a 4v3 situation can be created. To combat this 4-2-3-1 formation, more staggering is needed within the pressing shape to allow for angles to be covered effectively, with the 3-4-3 being typically very flat in midfield. As a result, the pressing shape can be adjusted to 3-4-3 diamond, in which the first line is passive and looks to guard pressing lane, with the striker keeping one pivot still within their cover shadow. A central midfielder can press the pivot from behind, and there is compactness within this shape that covers the angles previously mentioned. Most notably, the 10 is now marked. The pressure by the winger forces the player towards the right side, while the central lanes can be occupied by the holding and central midfielder pressing from behind. The striker and the attacking midfielder can then press together to cut passing lane to the right, and can also press aggressively in order to prevent any high passes. The two must also remain compact to prevent a pass being played between them. If the play is switched to the other center back, the same shape can be created again within a few seconds of shuffling, with the basic principle of a diagonal passing lane to a pivot being cut and a straight passing option being open but pressable. Again, the winger initially cuts the passing lane directly to the opposition winger by staying narrower, but can move out to press it with cover behind still. If the ball is switched quickly, played into an awaiting pivot, the center midfielder behind can jump to press in quickly while covering forward passing lanes. One pressing trap is still available, however, if the wide forward opens the passing lane to the opposition wide forward. Thanks to a now more staggered structure, a pressing trap can be created within this wide area using the following movements highlighted here. The left-sided midfielder marks the ball near a pivot as close as possible to prevent them receiving the ball, while also maintaining a good distance to press the wide area. The central midfielder covers the vertical central lane and is able to shift across into a shaped scene in the next scene. The most central midfielder has the option of jumping to press onto the left-sided or left pivot, given their proximity to the player, while the left-sided midfielders covers the lateral options for the ball's carrier and helps cover the inside space which the number 6, the deepest midfielder, has to cover. The higher centre-back can also press vertically, while the number 6 can mark number 10 and can also provide cover in the back line after the center-back has jumped. This allows for a 2v1 situation to be created directly on a ball carrier for all the immediate options to be marked, which gives a high chance for a turnover. The far-sided midfielder can also seal the trap further and jump in if needed. It can also cover the far-sided opposition players. This also gives an opportunity for a counter-attack with the offensive structure still in good shape and the opposition caged in. In conclusion, pressing within a 4-3-4 in this way offers the opportunity for efficient pressing within the first line, while also committing more players forward in a higher starting position, allowing for a greater ability to prevent the opposition build-up. As highlighted throughout this video, there are also a number of pressing traps available within this formation, and of course there are many more available, as well as there are being solutions in order to avoid these traps.